will be by then. So make sure to do that. But Parker, I want to get to Parker. Do y'all think Michigan will win the national championship this upcoming year? I'll start with you, Ryan. What do you think?
They have a shot. I think they're one of the favorites to win it. I don't know if they will win it. Me personally, I don't think they will. I think not Georgia, Tennessee is the team. I think it's their year.
Tennessee. If
But
Tennessee wins it, I'm gonna be so upset.
So I'm like we talked about it. I'm very high on Tennessee.
You are.
I'm very very high on Joe Milton. I love what he
I am
did.
not.
I feel like it pains Michigan fans to see him succeed somewhere else. But like I feel like you guys should root for him, kind of like you do Cade McNamara.
Look, I have nothing against Joe Milton personally. I just wanted him out of Ann Arbor with haste. Like the way he was thinking it up out there for us. And again, all respect to Joe Milton. No disrespect, respectfully. But disrespectfully, you were disrespecting the winged helmet. Now, the thing is, Joe Milton ended the season pretty well last year. He played extremely well in that bowl game. And Joe Milton is built like a tank. I will give him that. 6'5", 240, whatever he is. And he can throw the football a million miles. But it's an accuracy thing. It's a focus thing. It's a discipline thing. And if he has those things, then absolutely I'm not mad at your Tennessee pick. Tennessee still needs to get better on defense, though. I don't think Tennessee is going to do it, but I'm not mad at the pick.
I think if you're looking at the SEC, though, that like if you look at the SEC, Phil, it's what LSU is the only team that was really good last year that's bringing back their starting quarterback that doesn't have really any questions. I mean, you could say Georgia, but Georgia lost a lot again. They reloaded for back-to-back titles.
Yeah.
That's going to be even harder to reload.
On Georgia, Joel Clapp pointed something out, and I'll get to it in a sec. But I want to answer Parker's question before I lose it. Yeah. I think Michigan will field its best team in recent memory. I know last year was also the best team, but this year's team is better than last year's team in a lot of ways. And I think this is the year for Jim Harbaugh to win it because there's going to be a lot of losses after this season in terms of the roster. This is a big year for Michigan. I'm going to say yes, I am biased. Let me put that out there. But I give it a yes for Michigan to win the national championship this year. Really quick, let's move on from Parker, because you said something, Ryan, about the quarterback situation in Georgia. And Joe Klatt, and kudos to him. Georgia has put together a roster-based team, like he said. It's not necessarily reliant on the quarterback, although Stetson Bennett last season made plays for them all year, made big plays for them down the stretch, even in that the playoff game against the other state. So I can't knock him, but the roster is what's most important for Georgia, in my opinion. So I'm not gonna count them out this year, even though they are bringing on a new quarterback. They're breaking in a new quarterback, like so many teams across the country, including the other state, including Notre Dame. Although he's not necessarily a new quarterback, just new to Notre Dame. He's probably got the most experience, along with Bo Nix and a couple other guys. But so it's a little different for Notre Dame, but for these other schools, they're actually breaking in new quarterbacks.
Yeah, and that's where I think like this year in college football is the first year in a long time that I think we see like it's so wide open. I mean, there's not one team you can sit and look at that you say has no flaws, there's not one team that's like, oh, like last year Georgia was returned basically everybody besides a few key pieces on defense. That like, oh yeah, they were first. Like, how many people were like, oh, it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State in the national title game? I mean, they were pretty close. I mean, it was Georgia, Ohio State, which was the best the closest game in the playoff. But I mean, I don't look at the SEC. I think that's wide open for Tennessee,
right?
Because they get Georgia at home this year. The toughest
Georgia's
game.
got a better roster than them. Tennessee is losing the quarterback. Now, granted, like I'm giving Milton credit. He played well at the end.
I also
but it was like 2 games, 1 game.
He played against Clemson and he tore that Clemson defense apart.
He did. But they're also losing the wide receiver. They're losing a lot of the things that
they were
good at.
They still have Brew McCoy, the transfer from the U.S. Texas, and he was a former 5-star, and they still got Squirrel White, who was a true freshman last year. So I mean, they're returning both their running backs from last year that started for them. So I mean, the only real loss they had was the offensive lineman that went in the first round and Jalen Hyatt on offense and Hendon Hooker, obviously. And Hendon Hooker, I mean, Joe Milton's not as good as Hendon Hooker. Let's get that out of the way right now. Like Hendon Hooker better, but does Joe Milton really need to be Hendon Hooker in an offense that
if they're going to beat Georgia, if they're going to beat whoever comes out of the West, he needs to be Hendon Hooker-ish. Hooker-ish. Pause. But I think talent for talent, skill for skill, I think its skill set is better than Hendon Hooker. Like he's supposed to be better than Hendon Hooker. He is not though. And that's all discipline and focus and accuracy, in my opinion.
How much is it like you guys are still stuck on his time in Michigan?
Well, I'm like I said, I wish him well. If he goes and lights it up for Tennessee, more power to him. I don't want him anywhere near Ann Arbor.
What if we get a Tennessee
off on somebody or something? You said what?
Tennessee Michigan national title game, revenge of Joe Milton.
Revenge of Joe Milton. That's what it'll be billed as, right? If we play Tennessee if we lose to Tennessee, if Joe Milton wins a national championship before Michigan does, disgusted. I will flip the table. I'm telling you right now. I'll come on live to flip my desk